Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Life and Love. Last video I have touched on few aspects of life as an introduction. Today we will continue with the introduction somehow and talk about general things. And one aspect I would like to talk about is that everyone in the world and all beings, as a matter of fact, not only humans, we all crave and desire to be happy, to be fulfilled. In that fulfillment we look for healthiness, for holiness, for to be joyful, And this it's inherent quality in us. It's an inherent desire in us. It is not cultivated or given from generation to generation. It is in every generation that everyone wants to be happy. And this inborn desire in us, it's making life and love flow. It is the flow of life, the process of life. In doing so, everyone looks in their own way for that happiness. A criminal, for example, does it by destructive means because the mind is structured in that way. But he's still looking for his own happiness, even that he's doing through destructive means. A country dictator does the same thing, uses and manipulates people in order to get to a happiness which is inherent in us, by destructive means. And it is only because of the mind inability to see reality for what it is. In that respect, the mind, as Buddha has stated, can keep us in bondage, or in the same, it has the power to liberate us too. Depends of factors and conditions in life. Circumstances and conditions in life comes about, and they are not at our disposal to control them. Some we do control, but most we do not. They just come. And we find ourselves in the middle of a situation where we can only respond to whatever is in front of us. And how we respond, that is very important. And we respond, most of us, we respond through a conditioned mind, a mind which has been conditioned for millennium. This conditioning is not only mine or yours, it's our mind conditioning. Because also mind is not mine or yours. Particular thoughts are mine or yours, but in that mind, all brains can function. So every being, from an ant to human beings, has a brain, and the capacity of that brain operates within a field of consciousness, which is the same as mind. You can call mind consciousness or awareness also. Then you see, us human beings, we have the capacity to intellectualize. We were given the intellect, because without it we would not have survived for millions of years. And we have not have created the society we have created today if we wouldn't have the intellect, the reasoning behind us. Most beings have, but their capacity to use the intellect, it's diminished by whatever capacity of the brain is. And I will not go too much deeply into this aspect. What I like to point out is that we differ from all other beings, that we can use the intelligence, the intellect, for our own prosperity, for our own survival. And the intellect itself is just a tool for us to use. A tool, it's a knife also. A knife, you can cut a piece of bread, but also you can cut and kill someone. It depends how the mind directs that usefulness of that tool. So also the intellect, you can use it to do good or to do bad. And that depends on our conditioning. It depends on the environment we grew up, the school we have been to, the teachings which were passed to us by our families, by friends, by institution, by religion. And this is what makes us different from one another, this conditioning. One is conditioned in one, and that condition gives birth to a direction in life for somebody. For somebody, they take different direction. And that conditioning for me, I find out that needs to be eradicated. I'm not talking about the physical condition of how you cook a meal, or how you dance, or how you create. Every tradition in every country, things are done differently. But that physical conditioning, it's still needed. But the psychological condition, which I am a Romanian, or I am English, or I am American, or I'm a Burmese, or whatever, and I am better than you, and I know better than you, this psychological condition needs to die. For two beings to meet heart to heart, that conditioning needs to be dropped. When I drop my conditioning and you drop your conditioning, then we can meet heart to heart, and then we can relate fully to one another. Until that happens, it's a very superficial relation. So life, it's just, you could say that it's just a web of relationship between humans, between animals, between everything, between water and rock, between the 5 elements. It's just a dance in life. Life, it's beautiful if you flow with it. If you observe nature, if we observe nature, we can find out that animals and beings in nature, they beautifully flow with nature. Whatever nature takes them, they flow with it. The only being on earth which flow against, most of the time, it's us, humans. We think we know better. We think we invented the moon, and so on and so on. The know-how, knowledge, that we know better than the other, and so on. The ignorance, which Buddha calls it one energy which envelops the world, is the veil of illusion, is the ignorance of our own reality. And that veil of illusion, it's very hard to remove, because that conditioning, it's brought up, which is the veil of illusion, is the filter with which we see the world. And when you see the world with a filter, you don't see the world as it is. You see it through your filter of conditioning to how you wanted to perceive the world and how the world should be according to your beliefs, to your conditioning, to your systems, to how you've been taught that the world should be and function. You know, life, it's as we stated before, it's a process. And love is the energy which moves everything. In love, you find all the laws of creation and law of nature. And love is not an authority. So God or truth or intelligence, whatever you want to name it, never works through authority. Only us human use authority because the intellect has give birth to authority, and that authority can be good or can be bad, but it's still authority. The law of the universe and the law of love, it's written in love. They are flowing with love. You don't need to cultivate compassion. You don't need to make yourself, tomorrow I'll be more compassionate. No, you're not more compassionate. You are the same wolf in different skin, in a sheep skin. Compassion, care, understanding, intelligence flows in love. They are our inborn nature. They are already in us. We do not need to get it from another to know how to act rightly in the world. If somebody gets in touch with that reality, with love, every action will be the right action. Every thought will be the right thought, because then the law of nature will flow through us. We don't need to think what to do. We don't need to be told by politicians how to live in harmony with one another. Society will change completely if only 100 people will touch that reality which is in us. It is not easy to do so, because as I mentioned in the first video, the only entity which stops us from doing so, it's our egos. And maybe I should touch of what is ego. Many of you might of course know it. Whatever I talk in this discussion and in these talks, most of you know most of the things. There's no doubt about it. But for people which might not have looked into it more deeply, maybe it's a good thing to reiterate, let's say, talk about it again. Ego, it's our own personality. It's our own identification with our bodies and our minds. And this identification is the hardest thing to let go of. If one can let go of this identification with the body or the mind, both of them together, one is free of all troubles. One, there and then, ends up all suffering. Because what makes us suffer is that egoistic view in life. That I need to have this, I have to get that, and the more I have, the less somebody else has. You see, in life we only need 3 things to be happy. 1, it's a shelter. 2, clothes on our back. 3, food in our system. If we have these 3 things, we are content with life. You can say, in that contempt, joy is. And if you observe in life, you might go to a country or a suburb in your country which is people are more poor, but you still see kids on the street happy and smiling, and if you give them a chewing gum or if you give them some lollies, they're so joyful. They so respect that which was given to them, you know. And in children you see the purity. In children, if you look, you see reality. And you recognize yourself as pure being. Then the ego is the most destructive element on earth. The atomic bomb is not a problem unless we make it a problem. Unless we press the button for a destruction of such kind to occur, the atomic bomb sits there in silence, does nothing. So it's the ego which makes the most mischief in the world. It's the ego which doesn't allow life to flow, doesn't allow us to flow through life, and doesn't allow love to manifest through us. So the big question is how one can get rid of it. The bad news is that you cannot get rid of it, because in doing so you annihilate yourself in this body, and that's not the purpose. The only way is to put the ego in the right spot. You see, as I mentioned in the first video, our egos took over the self, which is our true being. The self is imprisoned and knotted in our hearts. And the ego runs amok, becomes the master, and the self becomes the servant. We have to reverse that, because that's the original structure of our being. Then the self is the master, and the ego is supposed to be just a servant. Our ego is supposed to be just a tool to function in this 3-dimensional existence. For example, if you need to dig a hole in the yard, you go in the shed, take a shovel, do the work and dig the hole. And then what do you do with the shovel after? You go and put it back in the shed, isn't it? So, with the ego, the same. One should use it every day to drive the car, to make your coffee in the morning, to watch the YouTube, whatever you want to watch. But then, it should be put place in the shed of our own being, and only be taken out when we need it to function in this world. You see, as I talk, you listen. You listen to the words, to the idea which are being communicated. And then language is it's an element which transfers and makes the communication happen. We needed language because we cannot yet, and very few can, communicate through vibrations. And in everyday life, at one stage or another, you have done it and I have done it. And we have sit in silence and we have listened to that vibrations coming and going. And sometimes you might sit with your wife or your girlfriend or with your mother and father, and you might do things which they just were about to ask you to do it, which is called telepathy. It's just to represent that structure. That vibration, the soul, the spirit understands. So two human beings can talk with each other without language, without noise, without any interference from the ego. When that happens, the communication happens. We will go into details more about these aspects, about the ego, the self, and how the body functions, what is the body, what is the mind, and what are we. We cannot really define what we are, because thought, ego, and mind, it's limited in expressing the unlimited. So we only can find out what we are not and realize that we are not that. As an example, a few minutes ago, since then in my body, many cells have died and many cells were born again. Then the body is not the body which was 3 minutes ago. That stellium has changed since 3 minutes ago in a physical form. In the same way, the mind also has changed. The thoughts which were there 3 minutes ago are not there now. So you see, as I explained, that the life is a process which happens in our bodies, in our minds with thoughts, in our body with the physical structures of our organism. We are a process in continuous transformation. So, that is not a reality. It is only a temporary reality, isn't it? It's not something which you say exists forever. Maybe nothing exists forever, I don't know. But it is for us to find out. And we cannot find out what exists forever. We only can find out what it's only temporary reality. The whole existence, the whole creation is just a temporary reality. It changes all the time. But the existence itself, the life itself, it's actually forever. As I stated before, life can have form or no form, but it's still life. You see, life exists even with no breath. For example, if you take a breath and hold it for a bit, you will notice that your breathing stops you from thinking. It just diminish a little bit. It doesn't stop thinking in itself, but it slows it down. Therefore, our breath has a link with the mind in this respect. This is why in yoga, pranayama, to do pranayama, to re-energize the body with the breath, it's a practice in the yogic tradition. And not only in the yogic tradition, even in other traditions, it has been done. So, to understand life, one has to really look himself, herself into it. You might listen to a YouTube video on Christ teachings, Buddhas. You might read a book, you might read a scripture, the Quran or the Bible or whatever tradition, religious tradition you are in, or if you're a scientist, you are agnostic and you don't believe in anything, you're still looking, but you're looking through other means. You see, unconsciously or consciously, we're still seeking that reality, that truth, that beingness, that joy. We are still seeking it. It doesn't matter if you have a religion or not. That process goes automatic in each one of us. So, the spiritual giants like Christ, Buddha, Mahomet, Krishna, Rama, they have already pointed to us what we have to do. And they all pointed, and all religion in this matter have acknowledged that God is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. So nothing is without him, everything is in him and outside him, and he is in everyone and everywhere, and he knows everything. Every religion and tradition, and even science, with the quantum physics and the study of consciousness, agrees with this. So then what do we fight for? Why do we argue with each other? For what? If we all agree to this, then the question is, where's the evil? Because if God is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, he's everywhere, he's in everything and he's everything, then where the evil exists? He exists, but it's only temporary reality. The ego. It's our own creation. And if we take that reality as our reality, then we will always suffer. Suffering will never end unless the ego takes its own place. I know today I talked a lot about ego, but I think it's essential to understand, because by understanding what ego is, from there you have a foundation of where you go further. We should talk about the senses and how we see reality, how we see life. You see, our senses, the 5 senses, they can never give a real description of reality because they are limited in themselves. The eye can see so far. The eye can see, so it cannot have a very deep insight like a microscope has. So, you see, the eye is restricting in seeing the whole reality. So is the smell, so is the touch, so is all our senses. are restricting in giving us a view of reality. So then, what do we do? How do we look into life with no senses? We cannot cut off, we still have them. But we need to find a way, if there is another way to look. And there is. When all the 5 senses in meditation come together and you do not pay attention to any of them, then there's a 6th sense appears. And this 6th sense can have attention on one specific sense, which is the vision or the hearing or whatever the attention is put on. But when you don't put attention on any of the senses become their perception become more heightened. And then you can hear much more, you can see much more, you can feel much more. Then this 6th sense, which some call it the third eye and some call it this and this, I just call it the 6th sense. It's not very much used by us. Even that is our natural sense. It is incorporated in our own being. If we get in touch with that 6th sense, from there we see life different. We see another person with different eyes. You look at one person's actions and you don't judge him by his action. You only understand his actions by where he stands to. You can see his conditioning. He's been conditioning this way. He's acting from the ego. That's why he's acting that way. In that understanding is love. And you don't have to respond to anything. And love will take care of the right action. Love will take care of the right judgment. You know, there's a lot to talk about life and love. There's a lot to learn about our own being, about ourselves. In Quran, Muhammad has written, the one who knows themselves, they know their Lord. All the other spiritual scripture, even Christ has stated, the self-knowledge is the highest part. The yoga tradition, Ramana Maharshi, a great saint, Indian saint, said that all yogas, all spiritual practices, all tradition, they all point to self-knowledge, to knowing yourself. So, as we go into the videos, we will talk in more detail about different aspects of life, how we react to things and places, how we feel things through our senses, based on our feelings, how emotions arise in the mind, and how desires come up. Then the more and more we understand how we work as a human beings, the more peace and love we will be able to manifest and allow to flow through us and transform us from human beings into divine beings. For the human evolution doesn't finish with humanity. It finishes with divinity. And that is a fact which all spiritual giants have talked about. Now, I think I've talked enough for the day. And I'll see you in the next video. Till then, I wish you well, be happy, smile, and be joyful. Thank you very much for listening to me, and have a nice day.